Hey everybody in Serial Killer Country. My name is Brittany Ransom.
And my name is Brian Joyner.
And this is When Killers Get Caught, a podcast devoted to deep dives into the lives and psyches of the killers we love to learn about. Each week, Brian and I find a true crime story that resonated with us. Then I discuss one well-known or lesser-known killer and go deep into their childhood, lives, methodology, and most importantly, how they got caught. And then we get a little spooky and we'll learn something about cryptids or the supernatural. And just before we begin, just to let you know, our Patreon is live. There are 4 tiers from $5 to $50 that offer lots of things like being able to listen to us report the podcast or playing games with us on Twitch or just getting a free 30-minute podcast about conspiracies.
Yes, it's all fun and games over on Patreon.
It is fun and games on Patreon. You can support us by going to patreon.com/whenkillersgetcaught. And you are always open to check out our merch at www.whenkillersgetcaught.com. And I am slowly merging it over to the Facebook page, which is also searching When Killers Get Caught. And the podcast is now available to listen to on Facebook.
Look, you're getting us everywhere.
So listen, if you prefer to listen to on Facebook or look at things on Facebook, absolutely, they will all be there. That happened this week that I was able to. I guess Facebook's doing some new changes.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, though. Next, it'll be freaking Twitter.
That'd be great. That would be awesome if everything was all integrated. But so before I start into this week in true crime and what I want to talk about, I want everyone listening to just hear me out. Don't get mad when I say the name of this, because I want to talk about missing white women syndrome. This is specifically in the news right now because of the Gabby Petito case. And what missing white women syndrome is the American media's propensity to specifically cover with just like a ferocious ferocity. Like the mainstream media in this country absolutely loves to talk about missing white women. And it's to the detriment of missing women of color. There are a disproportionate number of teenage Black girls who are being kidnapped across this country, and they are virtually never reported. There are a disproportionate number of Indigenous women across North America that have not been reported. And it's been such a big deal in Canada that they are now launching like investigations into the coverage and the police, whether they have been doing the right thing. There is an entire highway in Canada that they refer to as the Highway of Tears because there have been so many Indigenous women who have gone missing in this area, and it crosses roughly 75% of the continent, or sorry, that country on our continent. And this is really important because, like I said, so many of the people who need to be reported are not being reported. Just this week alone, it wasn't until Jelani Day, his mom spoke on TV about the fact that she had been trying to get coverage of him missing put on mainstream news since he went missing on August 24th. This week, he was found technically September 4th.
His body was found,
September
right?
9th. Yes.
Yeah.
In a river in Illinois. But they didn't I guess there was no fire behind the ME
it was just
until everyone publicly was like, where is he? You found a body. Do the friggin' coroner report.
Yeah, they were just like, oh yeah, we found a body, blah, blah, blah. That's
right.
about it.
And so, of course, once they do it, like days after this is everywhere on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, all of a sudden we have a positive ID.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been almost 3 weeks since they found the body. I mean, there are situations like Akia Eggleston. She was 8 months pregnant when she disappeared 4 years ago in Baltimore. There's a young girl named Keisha Unique Jacobs. She's been missing since 2016. She'd be 26 years old now. There are a host of families who are asking just for similar coverage of the people who they love. And I have been getting messages in my inbox on TikTok for a very long time with people asking me to cover missing cases. And so I asked on Facebook, I asked on YouTube, and I asked on TikTok, do you want me to cover these cases? And I got to be really honest with you. I don't know if people are prepared for this, but I have absolutely no intention right now of covering whatever the new hot story about the missing white women is, because I feel like there's already enough attention. You got your CNN and every other major news source doing this. So I am going to start covering missing people every Monday. I'm going to try and do more than my normal videos so that I can get a bunch of them up, because literally there are at least 50 different people in my inbox at any given time requesting, can you talk about my friend? Can you talk about my cousin? Can you talk about my sister? Like, there's so many. And I got to tell you, I'm going to say that I'm going to start specifically discussing women of color and Indigenous women first, because I feel like there is a gap in
absolutely
the reporting.
Absolutely.
And this is not to say that anybody's missing relative is less important, but until there is fair coverage, those of us who are talking about things in the media on alternate forms of media have to cover that gap. So I hope I didn't make anybody too mad. People get real angry when you start saying the words white and women on the internet.
But, and that's what we're here for anyway. Like you and me, that's what we do this podcast for. We cover that gap of people.
It really is true. I have been doing a seminar this past week on marketing, and one of the people in my seminar hit me up. He's from the 30-Minute Podcast. He actually wanted to know if we wanted to be on his podcast and talk to him.
Oh
so maybe we might be on another person's podcast. But he specifically said that he was watching a masterclass and they were discussing the lack of people of color who specifically discuss true crime. And I wasn't aware when we made this podcast that there was a deficit in this. We've gotten a couple emails that were like, yay, you guys are woke. We really appreciate it. But like I said to you the other night when I called you to tell you about that, I was like, I don't know how to be any other way. Like, we're black people. We're going to talk about black people stuff.
That's what happens. Get two black people in the room on the microphones. Come on, now. What's going to happen?
This is what we're going to do. So I feel like it's something that people need to be aware of and think about, that the media that we are consuming is being curated by certain people. And those certain people care the most, apparently, about young white women between like the age of like 16 and like 25. They seem to be the ones that get the most attention. And that's unfortunate, because I'm sure there's an elderly white woman who's gone missing who could probably use the media. The media attention, you know? Absolutely. But we don't care about elderly people in this country, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Oh my God, we're not going there today.
But I'm going to turn it over to you, Brian. What is your story this week?
Oh my God. Well, thank you for all the information. So, speaking of white people.
Is this another is this a missing white person?
No.
Oh, okay.
So this is headlined as teenagers are charged with planning to attack a PA school.
Was this the two boys who look like they're about 10 years old?
No.
Okay, because that was a mess.
So this is four teenagers. They want to, I guess, attack a school, their high school.
Okay.
And remembrance of the Columbine.
Oh, Jesus.
Which will be turning 25 years old when they were planning the attack.
That's ridiculous. Oh, my God.
So they planned this attack for 2024.
Where was this happening in Pennsylvania?
Scranton, PA.
Oh, gee. Why is it always Scranton? What is going on in Scranton?
I have no fucking idea. Scranton's boring sometimes.
Maybe that's it.
The only thing they got there is the office, and it's just.
It wasn't even filmed there, though.
I know.
They literally filmed one
You got the Electric City, okay? They got the Electric City sign and everything.
Because when I did a story about this woman who was taking pictures with dead bodies. She was a mortician, and it was from that region. And people were upset. She just thought it was cool. So she was taking pictures of families without their permission. But
yeah.
So these kids.
So it's four kids. Two of them were 15-year-olds. They're being charged as adults. The other two were being charged with just juvenile charges. But yeah, it's they were trying to attack Dunmore High School.
Okay.
In Scranton.
I'm guessing that must be their school.
Yeah.
This is.
And it says that one of the girls' mothers said that told the police that her daughter was obsessed with Columbine. And like as a parent,
see, I can't say anything about that because I was like 12 years old reading about serial killers.
Okay, yeah, but what kind of obsession are we talking about? Like, are you trying to like?
I just wanted to know everything about them.
Yeah,
that's when this started. That is now what we have started when I was like 12, 13 years old.
Yeah, no, I mean, same thing with me in paranormal, but like,
I also was into the paranormal too. I started reading ghost stuff.
But like, come on. Like, if that's the only thing you're obsessed with, Columbine and the shooting and stuff like that.
Well, I guess the question is like, how do you know that your kid is just like casually interested in something? Because, you know, like little kids get into like dinosaurs. They know everything about every dinosaur, right?
Mm.
How do you know that your kid's like into murder like that? Or your kid is thinking about doing a murder? Like, I don't know what the rules are.
They start mentioning it a lot. I mean, like, okay, for example.
How did they know that this was happening? What did they find?
So what they found was, hold on. I don't know how they found. I think they found things they were making so they could do this.
Oh no!
So I read they found a Molotov cocktail. They found components for a bomb.
Oh, they were trying to do it bigger than Columbine because Columbine did not have explosives.
Yeah, they had plans written down for making bombs.
Absolutely.
And stuff like that.
See, and then I'm gonna also tell you that when I was 14, I read the Anarchist Cookbook.
Yeah, a lot of people
because
read
I was
that.
like, why not? And it was in my high school. My librarian didn't believe in banning books. She didn't believe that anything was bad to know. Mm-hmm. But like now I feel like I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, so I'm guessing they found this stuff in one of the girls' rooms.
Okay.
Or in her home or wherever.
Well, thank goodness for a snooping mama.
I know, right?
Hey.
But oh goodness gracious. They said they didn't believe there's like an immediate threat right now since
when's the anniversary?
It's in 2024, but
oh Jesus, they were planning.
Yeah, 2024. That's when they planned to attack. So,
oh Lord.
Yeah.
Okay, I can understand why the cops were like, well, they're just really stockpiling stuff for 3 years from now. Wait a second. 2 of them wouldn't have even been in high school anymore.
They still they still teach this kind of stuff in school, or they learn about this kind of stuff in.
No, I just mean that like, if 2 of them were sophomores, 3 years from now, they would be out of high school, still about to do this attack, and the other 2 would have been seniors.
Or maybe they had planned to get held back a year.
Seems
so
like a weird plan.
I know, because everybody, I don't know why. Why would you?
This is weird. This is weird and stupid.
I guess they had.
I'm kind of mad about it.
Yeah, I guess they had a list of targets that they wanted people to they
what
wanted
if
to
those
target.
people aren't even there anymore? What if the teacher you hate gets transferred?
One of them was the principal.
What if the principal decides to move to Wisconsin?
I don't know.
Now you can't kill him. Your revenge plot foiled.
I just like. Like I read it and I read the headline and I was like, oh no.
Kids are really impulsive, so this is very intriguing.
Yeah.
Because I would understand if they were like, we're gonna kill Principal Skinner next week. It's the only one I could think of off the top of my head.
Belding.
But to say we're gonna kill Principal Skinner 4 years from now. All right, get ready.
Yeah, get ready, Skinner.
They go see him in the hall. You don't even know, son.
Oh my God. You don't know what we got prepared for you. Just wait.
Oh, Jesus.
You better hope it's not a leap year. I'm done. Okay. That's it. That's what I got. Kids being kids, and sometimes kids are scary and think of scary things.
Kids are absolutely scary. But
yeah. Goodness gracious.
This week, I'm bringing it back to Australia. We are discussing the first woman to get a life sentence without parole. She only killed one person, her partner, John Charles Thomas Price, But what she did was so barbaric and disgusting that the government felt compelled to put her in prison for life when the average time a murderer spends is about 25 years in Australia. You and I were both alive when this happened.
Okay.
We were in middle school. And you may recall that it was global news that Katherine Knight skinned her boyfriend and tried to serve him as a dish to his children. Today will probably frustrate you, but not for the normal reasons. Because by the end of this, what I think I'm going to tell you is that misogyny and the confining nature of masculinity are why she was able to get away with abusing every man she ever dated. And had these men had felt the ability to report her, perhaps somebody's life could have been saved.
Oh, okay. I feel frustrated already. Let's go.
And so let's talk about who she was before she became the cannibal killer of Aberdeen. So Katherine Mary Knight was born October 24th, 1955, to parents who'd gotten themselves into a pretty big scandal. Her mother, Barbara, was married to a man named Jack Ruffin in Hunters Valley in Aberdeen. It's spelled Rougan. And I want to say Rogan so bad, but it's wrong. It was in Hunters Valley in Aberdeen, Australia. She was having an affair with a man named Ken Knight, and both Ken and Jack worked for the same slaughterhouse.
Oh, isn't that lovely?
In fact, Ken was a pretty good guy, except for the whole stealing your girl situation that went down.
Boyfriend number 2.
They all hung out together, Jack and Barbara, along with all the other people. Slaughterhouses in the 1950s in this area were pretty common. It was major unskilled, well, I wouldn't say unskilled labor jobs, but non-education based jobs. What do you call those?
I don't know.
When people learn trade. There you go.
Trade?
So
What do you mean not education based?
So you don't go to college to get this job.
Yeah, but you go to
But you do still need to learn like how to do it.
Okay, you go to trade school.
Right. So these are trade-based jobs where mining and pretty much manufacturing and working in slaughterhouses. Pretty common back then. But they met in the bar. And Ken flirted with her in front of her very drunk husband, but he was too drunk to realize. Now, Barbara and Jack were high school sweethearts, and they had 4 kids, 2 teenage boys and 2 younger children. And she felt trapped in a marriage that she entered way too early. She never even considered divorce because it was unheard of back then. But an affair, no problem. People were always having affairs in Aberdeen, and Ken was there, and he liked her. So one night when they were all drinking, Jack got taken back home because he was wasted. So Barbara went home with Ken instead. And then they ignored each other in public.
Just played it off.
Yep. Made sure that they never interacted again in public. But one day she was home and Jack saw a bruise on her thigh that he thought looked like a handprint. And he beat the ever-loving crap out of Barbara and threw her out of the house and all of her stuff with her.
Oh, you didn't ask her where it came from. You just assumed.
Within a day, the entire town knew. Now, mind you, the town had about 1,500 citizens. And so she moved into Jack's very tiny apartment that he got from the job. It was bad. Bad enough that like her teen boys would spit at her in the street if they saw her. Damn. They sided with their dad wholeheartedly. The 2 youngest kids were sent to go live with an aunt in Sydney, roughly 200 miles away. And so Ken and Barbara left and they went to a city called Marie. He got a job at a slaughterhouse there. Barbara got her divorce, and she also lost her friends and her family and her kids.
I mean, that's what happens when you cheat.
1 week after the divorce was approved, she got married to Ken. She had 2 boys within the same year, which means those back-to-back pregnancies.
Those back-to-back. Oh, goodness.
And she pretty much walked from a man who didn't really love her into the arms of a man who didn't really love her, but was also a hardcore alcoholic.
Oh, so you downgraded.
She downgraded. Barbara was aware that cheating again meant that she'd lose her children, so she was just going to try and stick it out for Ken. But Ken was kind of awful to her specifically. He was very demanding sexually, and if she would deny him, he'd attempt to beat her into submission. And when that stopped working, he would pretty much chase her around the house and rape her.
Bruh.
Sometimes 10 times a day.
Oh my God.
So when Barbara found out that she was pregnant and it was twin girls, she was so happy. Now she had like some allies in the house.
Yeah.
So Katherine and her sister Joy were born in Tenterfield, New South Wales. Joy was a tomboy who very quickly hung out with the boys in the family, so Katherine ended up being her mother's only friend. She was a pretty normal kid in the midst of a toxic family. Ken was very strict, hyper-conservative. The kids were frequently whipped for any bad behavior, but Katherine learned very quickly, and she was never whooped for the same thing twice. She actually learned very early how to deal with her dad's intensity, and she began to idolize him almost. She treated him like a god, which hurt Barbara's feelings because she was like, dang it, we were supposed to be besties and now you're on his side.
Kids always flock to the dad for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, then Jack died in 1959. Katherine was 4 years old. So ex-husband dies and the two older boys move in with Barbara and Ken.
Oh, okay.
They very quickly adapt to Ken's intensity and loathing of their mother. They already viewed her as a whore, and they also viewed all women in this way. They pushed their luck a little bit too many times in town, though, and they got blacklisted from pretty much every town event for being creeps. They saw Joy as one of the boys, which left Katherine to be sexually groomed by her brothers from roughly the age of 4 to 14. Katherine thought that this was just the way men are because her mother had been telling her stories about being raped by her father since she could remember.
Oh my God.
Like at one point, Katherine asked her mother, what do you say if you don't want to do those things?
Say fucking no.
Well, her mom responded, just let them do what they want with you. It's easier that way.
You say no and you kick them in the balls. They try to do anything else.
There you go. Listen to Brian.
Yes.
Before Katherine was even a teenager herself, all 4 of her brothers were molesting her. She started trying to find ways to not be in the house. And she had an uncle named Oscar. Oscar was a famous horseman who had a farm where he took care of his rescues and champion horses. Katherine loved it there. She loved learning from him. She would rescue any injured animal she could find and bring it home. This was the one thing that she was willing to fight her father on. She didn't care that she made him mad. She was going to save this bird she found on the side of the road. If she found a bigger injured animal, she took it to Oscar and he would take it to a vet. Or she would bring him to where it was. Unfortunately, Oscar had his own demons and he took his life when Katherine was 14 years old.
No.
It was just a bit too much for Katherine to take, and she was grieving really hard.
It just sounds like the only guy that was...
Yeah, so
decent.
far, the only one who was nice to her is Uncle Oscar.
Yeah, decent guy in her life. Great, okay.
Well, right after he dies, one of her brothers comes into the room to, like, oh, let's hang out, so he can, like, touch her, in that subtle way. And she punched him so hard that she nearly broke his jaw and said, if you ever touch me again, I will castrate you.
Oh, yes.
Now, the older boys heard about this, and they were like, well, let's go see how Katherine's doing. And Katherine was pretty sad, but she seemed pretty normal. So they just assumed that, like, okay, maybe our younger brother, like, pushed things too far, and that's why she hit him. They all learned their lesson, too. One had a black eye for a month. The other got stabbed. The boys told their parents it was just from fighting at school.
It's not because we were trying to touch her sister and she fucked us up. No. I love it.
They never told. Because that mean they would have to tell them themselves. And they didn't doubt Katherine when she said she'd castrate them because she'd learned how to do it on Uncle Oscar's farm.
I love it so much.
So on one hand, things are going pretty good for Katherine. She just learned that if you beat the shit out of a man, he won't put his hands on you anymore.
Yeah, basically.
However, after Uncle Oscar died, the family realized that the town of Moray was only putting up with them because Oscar was a celebrity, and they didn't really like the very sinful Barbara, and they definitely didn't like her sinful teenage boys who kept touching girls in town. So when Katherine was 15, they moved back to Aberdeen. She entered Muswellbrook High School in 1969. She was the new girl. And within the first week, kids knew that they shouldn't bother her. She was this like sweet, cute redhead, pretty tall. She'd smile and laugh with you until you made her mad. And then she'd just rip into somebody, just verbally disrespectful. And by chance, if you put your hands on her at all, she would get you back. Like one day on the school bus, a girl tripped her, and the next day, Katherine cut off her entire ponytail.
Oh.
A boy on the bus talked about her breasts or lack of thereof, and when she walked by him, she smashed his face into the bus seat in front of him. She was waging war on these bus rides. And then at school, the kids would report her, and the teachers were like, this doesn't make sense. Like, they're saying that she beat him up, but she's sitting here just looking chill. And then essentially in these little meetings, the bullies would admit that they had provoked her. And even though her retaliations went from 0 to 100, the staff pretty much was like, well, you don't want your teeth knocked out? Leave her alone.
I mean, yeah.
Pretty much everybody in the school took that position. Her peers respected her. The younger kids feared her. It was a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Katherine kept a knife in the fold of her skirt at her waist. It was so she could grab it if she needed it, but it was close enough to her body that no male teacher, who were the predominant gender of the teachers at the school, would ever touch her to look for it. And she stabbed a boy at school one day. They couldn't find the knife, so they couldn't prove that it had been done. So they sent home a little behavior letter. This happened a lot. Now, Ken would get those letters, and he would say, did the boy deserve it? And Katherine would say, yes. As far as Ken was concerned, his daughter was defending her honor from these fresh boys in town. Which is kind of funny because he never made the connection that his own sons got rocked by Katherine as well. This kind of left Katherine to just, get her education and not be bothered. Since she was a farm kid, nobody really expected her to do well in school, but she did all right. She was on the path to having a pretty good life. And then her favorite teacher gave her a failing grade. She sat through his whole class just stony silent. And then after the bell rang and the other kids left, he walked over to her and he was just like, what's wrong? And she threw the paper at him and began screaming him. And then she grabbed the knife out of her waistband and stabbed her teacher. She probably would have killed him if he hadn't punched her. And it was the kind of punch that knocks you on your ass. And first there was a moment of silence, and then Katherine just began wailing, just screaming, sobbing. Now, he was a good teacher, and he didn't mean to punch her like a grown man, but he was in fight or flight mode. So he goes over to her, and he leans over her, and he's like, Katherine, are you okay? And at that moment, other students arrive to a crying girl. And there's blood everywhere.
It's not hers, it's mine.
Well, her teacher was suspended. Katherine played the victim. The school ended up deciding to do an investigation, and it was all people who had never met Katherine before. And at the end of the investigation, they were just like, you've been letting this kid just run around and rule your school. She is the problem here. They reinstated her teacher with all his back pay. They allowed her to go back to school. If she agreed, no more fighting, apologize to your teacher, and you're on probation. If you get into another fight or stab somebody else, you're out. She finished the school year avoiding that teacher, and then she never went to school after that ever again.
What the hell? What was the point then? Okay.
So what she did the next work day, she decides she wants to go to the Aberdeen slaughterhouse with her dad. She wanted to be like her dad anyway, so she's just like, why not do it a couple years sooner? The shift manager saw this skinny little 15-year-old and immediately went, no, this does not work for you. She kept her cool, knowing that her dad was at work, and she ended up leaving and going to a fabric factory in town and getting a job there. She was already really good at making her own clothing, and so when the job was to cut cloth to size, which you really don't want to mess up on because nobody wants one pant leg longer than the other.
Right.
Her employers were pretty happy with her work. She was making enough money. She moved out of her parents' house. Now, she found the women at the factory boring. So she would go hang out at the bar with the slaughterhouse employees after work. And that shift manager who told her no was completely taken aback to see Katherine in the bar making jokes and threatening to fight grown men in the bar. Now, she didn't drink because I think she grew up watching her father be very drunk.
Right.
They were also, all of the men, very kind of freaked out by how sexually forward she was. And she kind of made her way through the single men at the slaughterhouse. Like, she was so sexually forward that in some ways it was off-putting from the men she was trying to date.
I see.
Then in 1971, when she was 16, she applies for her dream job again, and they accept her, giving her pretty much the crappiest job in the place, cutting up meat for dog food. It's generally the scraps from all the other major cuts.
That's not too bad.
Which she was too good for dog food. She was too skilled for it.
Okay.
She had watched her dad, and her dad is one of the pretty much best people at this place. So within weeks, her bosses started testing her and giving her more complex jobs. Once she proved that she mastered that, they moved her to another station. Over only a few months, she met almost everybody in the factory, and they were all in a rude awakening if you thought you could treat Katherine Knight like she was a stupid little girl. If a man on the line raised his voice at her, she would look at him and say, "We can always go settle this with our fucking knives."
Oh my God.
She was ready to hurt them.
God.
Nobody ever took her up on her offer, though.
Mm.
She eventually did relax enough to stop threatening her coworkers, and she would have fun with them, cutting meat up, making jokes. She was moved to deboning in 1972, which is one of the most complex jobs in the slaughterhouse, and I had to Google why. Deboning is the process where you skin, remove the excess fat, remove the bone, and any blemishes to the meat. Your job is to do all of that while trying to preserve as much meat as possible.
Mm.
This was where her father worked, and he had earned a reputation of being one of the best people there. She was pretty hyped. She was like, nice, I get to work with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Ken was a little salty. He had been the top for decades because he did the job before they'd moved to Maury.
Right.
And now his own kid was kind of vying for his spot. They never spoke about it, though. It was a silent
A silent rivalry.
But Katherine kind of brought that out of every guy when she worked next to them. The men couldn't take the hit to their ego that a 16-year-old was better at them, so everyone was working their hardest to try and beat her. And if she was better than them, then they were just trying to not be ashamed and reach her level, so at least they were on the same level. Because of all this competition now in the slaughterhouse, the owners are hyped. So much more meat's getting cut, and it's all so much better. Mm-hmm. So they decided they wanted to show Katherine appreciation, but they did not want to give her a raise. So exactly 1 year from her start date, she was gifted a set of personalized knives and a custom leather bag to carry them in. She took them to work every day. At home, she sharpened and displayed them around the house. They were her most prized possession.
I think that's even better than a raise, actually. I want
right, get a little bag that says Katherine.
Look, I want my own personal set of knives that are nice and sharp and good. Yes. Anyway,
the owners didn't actually even need to ask Katherine to show it off. She did it on her own. And on her days off and lunch breaks, she'd come and hang out with her friends from different departments. Mm. Her favorite place to hang out was the pig slaughtering department. Now, unlike the cows who were killed with one blow because they're so slow, you just hit them, it's done, it's over with. Pigs were smaller and kind of wily, and it took more to kill them. Apparently, when you worked at the slaughterhouse, the sound of dying hogs was heard all over the building when the slaughtering moment happened.
Lovely.
Katherine thought the job was fascinating. There was an old man who worked there who was kind of a grump, and the only person he liked was Katherine. Some people kind of made jokes that it was like a lecherous relationship, but it seemed to just be a genuine friendship between a grandpa and a teen girl. She just wanted to know more about killing pigs. And so he was so happy to have the company on her lunch breaks that he would do stuff he wasn't supposed to, like killing the pigs in front of her. Or he would start killing them in worse ways because it made her happy.
Oh.
Or one time he skinned a pig while it was alive.
No.
Yep. And that only made Catherine really interested in doing it herself.
Poor pigs.
He let her slaughter the pigs. And sometimes she chased them around and like stabbed at them just to mess with them.
Oh my God, poor pigs.
So Catherine had gone in just like 3 years from a little girl who couldn't let a squirrel die on the side of the road to a full-blown animal torturer. Which, as we know, is one of the signs.
Yes. Just had to be pigs.
Now, it wasn't like this wasn't known around the facility. And you'd think that men knowing she was into that sort of thing would turn them off. But nope. She was very consistently asked out. She'd go from work to the bar, and then she'd flirt the night away. By 1972, she was stocky, about 6 feet tall, 17. And she ended up making friends with a man named David Kellett. He was 22. One night out while they were drinking, another man insulted David. And David kind of stepped down. He was like, I don't want to fight. Catherine was like, I do. And she knocked the guy out.
Lovely.
And she swung on him until her hands were bloody and his teeth were all over the floor. David and other coworkers had to pull him off of the man. Now, everybody else in the bar was like, typical bar fight. But the bartender was like, she's not drunk. And I know she's not drunk because I've been sending her lemonades masqueraded as another drink the whole night.
Oh.
So the bartender was like, this is just Catherine being Catherine, and you need to leave. The only other place that you could go drink in the entire city was a hotel that was literally across the street. So they went there. David was in awe of her. He was just like, I've never had anybody protect me. And the two began dating. And David got to see what it was like to date someone like Catherine. She made wonderful home-cooked meals. She fixed and improved his clothes. They had a stellar sex life that people at the slaughterhouse, when the guys talked, could not believe. Apparently, she had the similar sexual appetite as her father. And David was happy about that. So inevitably, she takes him to meet her parents. Now, at this point in time, Ken is heading towards retirement. The family had moved outside of Aberdeen to a small farmhouse. It wasn't to make money, though. Most of the property had been parceled out by the bank to pay for a previous owner that had gone bankrupt. So it was just like this old ramshackle farmhouse. But Ken was just like, listen, I'm just trying to rest and chill for the rest of my life. Ken was finally not being terrible to Barbara. Not because he wasn't a horrible person, but because he was too old to chase her around the house anymore. Barbara, however, was a mess.
Terrible.
She had spent the last decade isolated from nearly everyone, and it was definitely apparent in her behavior. In fact, at one point, David went to the kitchen to grab a beer, and Barbara corners him and just goes, you don't know this, but Catherine's got a screw loose. And he's just like, sure, whatever. And she's like, no, I'm serious. If you fuck up, she's going to kill you. And David didn't believe it, though, because he'd only ever seen her beat that one guy. And she'd never been anything but nice to David.
Yeah, because you were nice to her. So you didn't fuck up. Well, wait till you fuck up.
Well, they got married a couple days after her 18th birthday. It was super cheap ceremony. David was drunk because he was so nervous, but he didn't blow it. They had a party afterward. The folks from the slaughterhouse were there. The Knight family, the Kellett family. They went back to David's company-issued apartment to consummate their marriage. They had sex 3 times, and David fell asleep. Catherine was not asleep. She was sitting there, thinking about all of the snide comments that David's family had made that they thought that she didn't get. But she did get them. She just decided she wasn't going to beat anybody's ass on her wedding day.
Oh, goodness gracious.
So she wanted to talk about it with David. So she tried to smack him awake. And when that didn't work, she climbed on top of him and began choking him.
Oh, no.
Which woke him up. And he was very confused. He was just like, why did you choke me? And she's just like, I wanted to talk to you. He's like, I have scratches. I am now bruised. I don't understand what's going on. And Catherine was showing him who she really was.
On the wedding night.
Well, so what happens next is that she demands to have sex 3 more times. Because her mom had told her that on their wedding night, They had had sex 5 times, and she wanted to beat her dad's record.
Oh my God. Come on.
Which totally turned David off.
Yeah.
And he told her, he's like, listen, I'm going to go to the bathroom, freshen up. I'll meet you in the bedroom. And she's like, you better be here. He goes in the bathroom, the only door in the entire apartment that locks.
Mm-hmm.
Locks the door, climbs into the tub, and goes back to sleep.
Oh my God.
Passes out while Katherine is banging on the bathroom door.
Oh no.
After that, though, she cooled it. She turned off her crazy, as men are wont to say. They went back to work, where David would show up exhausted from Katherine wanting to have sex all night long, and she would show up full of energy, ready to cut animals up. She did all of her wifely duties expertly because Barbara was so depressed that she had stopped doing things. So Katherine sort of became very domestic when she was a child. So now that she is an adult, she's cleaning everything, she's fixing all the clothes, she's making him new clothes. She was trying so hard to be perfect. And David couldn't really figure out what had happened with the whole choking situation. But since things seemed normal, he was just gonna push that to the back and not bring it up anymore. Mm-hmm. The problem with all this is that Katherine was faking being the perfect wife. And months of doing all this stuff and not really entirely being true to herself was taking a toll. And she started resenting him a little bit, and she started like picking at him. Like if he was late. Her big thing, and this is going to be repeated throughout this entire situation, her big thing is she always says that someone she's dating is cheating on her. Everyone. This went on until 1975, and David got kind of sick of it. He was living in a home where his wife went from enraged to not, and then back. It was super stressful. And then Katherine, for a little bit, just stopped bothering him. They had gone to visit her parents. And she kind of, I guess, thought about, maybe she watched them and she wondered, like, I wonder why they've been married for so long and dad never stepped out on mom. And she's like, maybe that's because Barbara didn't bother Ken about all the stuff that he did. So they had a couple of months in 75 of calm.
Okay.
Until August, when she found out she was pregnant. And every bit of progress they were making towards this being a normal relationship was over. One night he came home to change his clothes before going to the bar, and she insisted that he was changing so he could go meet another woman. She took all of his clothes, threw them in the tub, covered them in lighter fluid, and set them on fire.
Oh, come on.
The Aberdeen Fire Department shows up with her husband in tow. The tub's melted. The house is full of soot. The neighbors are all outside watching. David is mortified. And Katherine is just staring them all. Just staring at them like, I dare you to say something about what's going on right now.
The fuck y'all looking at?
David didn't go to the bar for weeks. Mind you, he's not at the bar. He's going home and he's going to work and coming back home. She's still accusing him of cheating all day, every day. He went back to drinking so he could just get away from her. One night, he came home from the bar, and she was in one of her rages while ironing his clothes, and she hit him in the face with the iron. He ran to the bathroom to get away from her, and she screamed and hit the door with the iron until finally she quieted down and begged for forgiveness. David forgave her. The next day, he walked into... Well, I see your face. Brian is shaking his head.
No, I would not. I'm like, oh, that's okay. Well, I forgive you, but guess what? I'm leaving.
The next day, his boss took him to the hospital. No one asked any questions, which is exactly what he wanted. He actually started doing what you do when you're in an abusive relationship. He started bending backward to make Katherine less upset, telling her where he was at every moment of the day, coming home early or exactly on the dot so she wouldn't freak out. One night, he was 4 minutes late. And as soon as he walked into the kitchen, She hit him with a cast iron skillet, cracking his skull.
Oh my God.
He dragged himself to a neighbor's house to get help. He woke up the next morning at the hospital with Katherine crying next to him. David told the police that his wife was alone and she was pregnant, and she said she had heard somebody outside and she was so scared, and he came home later than usual from drinking, and she must have thought that I was an intruder.
So you're making excuses now.
Yep.
Great.
And the New South Wales Police Department were happy to accept this story because domestic violence is sticky and they didn't want to get involved. And David didn't make a formal complaint. Eventually, he went home. Katherine showered him with affection, also very common with abusive relationships. He went back to work. And she was actually forced to stay home because she was getting close to her due date. But at home, Katherine obsessed over the fact that David was going to leave her with the baby. A month later, David went to the bar for a tournament and told Katherine he'd be home at 11 p.m. When he didn't come home, she called the bar and he told her he'd be home in an hour. She's like, "But you said you'd be home now." And in front of his friends and her friends, he very drunkenly told Katherine, "Well, maybe I won't come home at all since you're being annoying."
No.
When he got home later, she was ready with the frying pan, but he ducked.
Yeah.
She swung again and missed and broke a light switch. In the darkness, he was able to escape and get back in his car and drive away.
Bro. God.
Now, David felt bad because everything Katherine was accusing him of, he was absolutely doing.
Oh, what the hell? What? No. No. You can't do that. How dare you?
He had been seeing another woman for months. It started after she began accusing him. So it did not start before, but that doesn't matter because he still did it.
Yeah.
And right after the frying pan attack, he decides he's going to make a plan to be with this new girl in Queensland. And that new girl told him that she was pregnant too. Oh. David's at this point like, I need to get out of town before Katherine kills me. Katherine goes into labor May of 1976. And David is supposed to pack a bag and meet her at the hospital while she goes there with her mom. Instead, he got in his car and drove out of Aberdeen. Katherine gave birth to her first child, Melissa Ann, with only her mother and father and sister by her side.
That's sad.
In fact, her sister Joy just went out searching for David. And she went back to the house. Everything in the house was there that belonged to him, but his car was gone. His friends were like, "Oh, maybe he had an accident. We should check in the road." Joy's like, "I don't think so." And Katherine's like, "I definitely don't think so." So this moment that she's supposed to be bonding with her baby, she is just loathing the existence of David. No one really understands this very dark place where Katherine is right now. She goes home with the baby, and after several weeks of being alone with Melissa, she starts just walking the streets in a blind rage with the baby in like a stroller.
Oh no.
And her neighbors call the police because she is like walking with the stroller, just banging it around, like completely gone. So the police pick her up. They drop the baby at her parents' house, and they take Katherine to St. Elmo's Hospital in Tamworth. Now, there were some whispers that she might have borderline personality disorder, but ultimately, the hospital diagnoses her with postpartum depression. They tried to give her an IQ test, but since she hadn't read any books or had to write anything in the last 5 years, she was almost illiterate. The test gave an IQ in the 80s, but that didn't line up with the person they were talking to. She was very cognizant of things. In fact, one of her doctors said, "Katherine Knight is a psychopath and a narcissist, and you are being manipulated into releasing her early." She's released 7 days later. I'm going to say that doctor was absolutely right.
He was right. Oh, God.
So she collects the baby from her parents, and it's all calm for a few days. And one day a man, He's a drifter in town. Just kind of wanders around, transient. He's walking train tracks and he hears a baby crying. And he's like, oh, well, maybe somebody's out here with their kid. And as he nears the tracks, he sees the baby on the train tracks. This, like, the train is close enough that everything's vibrating. And he runs and scoops Melissa up.
Oh my God.
To take her to town. In town, Katherine is in full-blown rage mode. Face red. She's so angry that she can barely speak. And she's just like growling and grunting. She walks into the town general store. She grabs an axe and just roars and walks back into the street. The police were called at this point, and they're just kind of watching her. She's pacing up and down the street, swinging the axe in the air. The other people are coming out of their houses, watching her, which is only making her more angry. And she goes to swing the axe at somebody who's watching, and she hears Melissa crying. And it startles her enough because she thought she was sure she killed this baby. They were able to subdue her, and they take her back to St. Elmo's, where she is forcefully medicated. And then it's almost like that crazy beast on the street is gone. They release her again, but this time Ken takes her home and he goes, we're keeping the baby. We'll take care of her until you get better. Which is pretty good because Katherine was filled with revenge. And mind you, these situations I'm explaining are happening weeks apart. So this baby is maybe like 2 months old at this point.
Oh my God.
So another night, she goes next door and she bangs on her neighbor's door. These are actually the same neighbors who helped David, the Macbeths. And she's like, my baby's sick. I need help. And 16-year-old Maggie Macbeth opens the door and agrees to help her. She's like, I'll drive you to your baby, but I got to bring my little brother. As soon as they get in the car, Katherine drops the sweet act. And she's just like, we have to drive to Queensland. I have to kill David and his whore.
Oh my God.
Now, for the listeners not up on Australian geography, Aberdeen is in the southeastern part of the country. I guess it's about 200 miles away from Sydney, Australia, which is what most of us around the world know. Queensland is located a nice 17-hour drive northwest, about 1,500 kilometers away, which is over 1,000 miles for those of us in the godless U.S. who keep using the horrible system of measurement.
Yes. I'd be like, hey, you got gas money, then sure, 17-hour drive. Yeah, let's go. Wait, is that to and from, or is it?
That's 2.
Oh, hell no. Okay, never mind.
Well, so Maggie's like, I can't drive to Queensland. Like, my parents. And Katherine actually stabs her. It's a very shallow stab, but it's enough to scare the girl. They end up stopping at a gas station to fill up. And as soon as Maggie gets out of the car, she runs into the gas station. She tells the store clerk, Katherine Knight is going to kill me and my brother. He calls the police, and then he's like, you can't go back out there. She's going to hurt you. But Katherine is threatening to kill the little boy. He had tried to run too, and he got scooped.
She got him.
So the police arrive, and they try and talk her down. And that ended with the kids and other civilians safe, but one of the cops' arms was slashed from wrist to elbow, and he also got stabbed in the ribs while they were forcing her into the back of the cop car, and she was just cackling. This time, the staff at the hospital realized that David Kellett is in danger. Yeah. He is the main discussion of every therapy appointment she has. She doesn't care that she permanently traumatized a 16-year-old girl. It was, I'm going to go to Queensland and torture David's mother until she tells me where he is. And then I'm going to go kill David and his girlfriend and anyone who sees me do it. Then I'm going to come back to Aberdeen and kill anyone who helped David leave me, starting with the mechanic who fixed his car.
Oh my God.
So the police decide to go to Queensland and tell David, just to let you know, your wife is committed to a hospital and she wants to kill you.
I'd say leave the country.
I think they thought that, like, this would just prep David. But in fact, it made him feel guilty. He was like, look at what I did to her. This is all my fault. So he leaves his girlfriend, who's about to have a baby in Queensland, to go back to his wife.
I don't like David.
He goes to the hospital, requests that she's returned to his care. He'll make sure she takes her meds.
No.
He goes, they pick up Melissa. In fact, when they opened the door, he was worried that Ken was going to be mad at him, but it was actually Barbara who opened the door and immediately attacks him like, this is your fault, screaming at him, hitting him. And Katherine steps in and like knocks her mom down.
She's like, no, Mom,
protecting
I got this.
her husband.
Yeah, I got this, Mom. I'll take care of him later. Don't worry about that.
Well, they take their daughter home, but after a couple days, it's almost unbearable for both of them, the amount of gossip and people watching them in town. So they moved to Woodridge, which is a suburb of Brisbane. It was a fresh start. Neither of them had any family there. No one whispered. David's mom comes from Queensland to live with them to take care of Melissa during the day, while both Katherine and David go to work. Katherine takes her medication, which does help. She's a stellar employee gifted with a knife. She would still get people back like in high school, but it wasn't like before. She was free to be not perfect this time. And they had all this excess money because both of them were working. But the only time that Katherine was really happy was at the meat processing plant and on the very quiet drive back home. This went on for years. Katherine going through the motions. Her medication kind of cutting off that passion that she and David had at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
They had a second child, Natasha Marie, on March 6, 1980. David was there. He held her hand through labor. She did not have the same response. In fact, what happened was that she was bored and she resented David, and it started to show. Everything sort of ended the day after Natasha's 4th birthday. March 7th, 1984, she packs up everything, no words, takes the kids, moves back to Aberdeen. It was almost like she didn't care. David still loved her, but he was kind of relieved. She filed for divorce, and she took the kids to her parents' house. Katherine got a small house in Muswellbrook and went back to work at the slaughterhouse. It had been 8 years, and she acted like absolutely nothing had happened. In 1986, though, she was lifting a hog, and she hurt her back. They rushed her to the hospital, but this was a career-ending injury. She ended up having to file for disability, workplace compensation. She gets an apartment from the government through the Housing Commission just outside of Aberdeen. She's 31 years old and has no idea what to do with her life. Melissa's 10. And while Katherine did warn Melissa about boys, she did not make the same mistake that Barbara did. But Katherine was lonely, so she started leaving the children at home at night and going to hang out with men, where she meets a local miner named David Saunders. He wasn't from Aberdeen, so he gave her a chance. Because what was happening was, even if she met a new guy in Aberdeen who worked at the slaughterhouse, within a day, other people would be like, she's crazy. You should leave her alone. So David wasn't in the same circle. They moved in after a couple months. The moods were up and down. She'd get in little fights with him, and he'd go back to his apartment in Sconce and sleep there. On their anniversary, he showed up with flowers, expecting a nice night. Katherine was in a mood, pacing the kitchen. She walked outside, picked up the family dog that David had bought for the children, and slit the dog's throat and said, if I ever catch you running around on me, this is what I'm going to do to you. David's like, I'm happy. I would never. But she picks up a pan and she swings it at him. And he put his arm up and she broke his arm, hitting him.
With the pan?
Yes.
Oh my God.
And then as he's like on the ground, she proceeds to beat him with the pan until he is unconscious.
Oh my fucking God.
For a week, he didn't respond to her at all. He stayed at home. When the bruises went away, he started doing some shifts at work. His coworkers actually mocked him for being jumpy. And the old men who worked there were like, nah, shut up. He's dating Katherine Knight.
Mm-hmm. He has a reason to be jumpy.
Yep. They exactly. The older men knew. So what happened is that Katherine camped out at his apartment one day. And as he's walking home, he expects violence when he sees her. But instead what he gets is Katherine crying and begging for forgiveness. He takes her back. Things are calm for a couple months. And then it goes dark again. When David asks her why she's so upset, she's pregnant. And she begins obsessing over David leaving her. So David tries to show her that he's serious about her by putting a down payment on the house. June 1988, she has her third daughter, Sarah Saunders. Now, David was like, after she gives birth, it's going to be great. Nope. Katherine was back in the postpartum state. And at the beginning of 1989, they are barely speaking. Katherine got her workers' compensation. She paid off the rest of the house. They started fighting. The first big fight was because he came home and the baby was still in a dirty diaper. Another time, he came home and all his work clothes were dirty. And he was like, what have you been doing all day? She responded by going and get a pair of scissors, and cutting his shirts in front of him.
That's not an answer.
Then she went to cut his work pants, and he was like, no, those are my only other pants. And he goes to grab them, and she stabs him in the stomach with the scissors and twists them as she pulls them out.
Come on.
Then she went to go get the iron, and David hopped into his car and drove away.
I'm done.
He didn't speak to her for several days. He was like, this is the second time this woman's tried to kill me. I'm not going to give her a third chance. He only went back to Aberdeen to try and see his daughter. And that's when he learned that Katherine had gone to the police and lied to them and gotten an apprehended violence order, which is specifically to keep someone violent away from you.
What? Excuse me?
This order said that he could not contact or see Katherine or the kids.
What did she say that he did to her?
I don't know, fam.
Because, oh my God. Like, I would have just went to the police station. You see this stab wound in my stomach? She stabbed me. I didn't do shit to her.
Well, next guy she dated his name was John Chillingworth. And she actually met him the day that he came back to Aberdeen. They had worked together when she was younger. But he was 10 years older than her. And he was honestly kind of creeped out when she was coming on to him as a 17-year-old. Now, they were roughly 44 and 34. And he was like, don't mind. Now, John was not like the Davids. The first time Katherine swung on him, he ducked and he smacked the hell out of her. In fact, she threw him out of her house, mainly because she was kind of startled that he just hadn't taken the abuse. She begged him to come home the next day.
You were just going to stand there and take it?
And bless her heart, Melissa, like, what a lovely child. All she heard from her mom was that John hit her. So when John comes back, Melissa's like, you hit my mom, and like gets mad at him. And he smacks her too. And he's like, sit down, little girl.
Oh my God.
Katherine gets pregnant. And John was like, maybe we should get married. But he realizes that Katherine doesn't care about being married. So he's like, bet, this is awesome. Throughout this pregnancy, all the same accusations. Just like the first Davids. And just like the first David, John started sleeping with somebody else.
Oh, you dumbass.
Her only son, Eric, was born in 1990. His father was present. And right after he was born, Katherine was a domestic queen again. John felt bad about cheating because she was just being so awesome. So he tells her the truth.
No.
She walks into the bathroom, punches the glass container holding his like bridge, breaking it. Then she walks out and punches him square in the jaw, breaking some of his real teeth too. That night, he went to his company-sponsored apartment and then came back to the house and picked up his stuff. He found Katherine in their bedroom. She was overdosing on all of the sleeping pills in the house.
Oh, no.
He drove her to the hospital, of course, guilty for driving her to suicide. They kept her for observation for a week. Things went back to normal. But this time, Katherine began cheating. And she planned it so one night when Jack came home from work,
he'd see.
John came home from work, he would see it. He walked into the house, found her having sex with another man in their bed. He's just like, you know what? I'm done with this. He leaves the house, never comes back. He actually moved away from Aberdeen, quit drinking, ended up becoming a drug and alcohol counselor, and spent the rest of his life helping other addicts. John Chillingham is the only man to escape Katherine Knight with no permanent injuries, and he's the last one to escape alive.
Oh, great.
The man Katherine was cheating with was John Price, and the affair had been going on for a year before Katherine decided to use him to hurt her ex.
Wow.
As their affair turned into a real relationship, it was pretty good in the beginning. Pricey, as he was called in town, brought out a certain gentleness in Katherine. He knew about her past. He didn't really care. She met his 2 kids. They liked her. Her own children really liked him. They were like, this is probably the nicest, gentlest person you've ever dated.
Mm-hmm.
Just like normal, after a little bit, she starts accusing him of cheating. She yells, she hits him, but he is completely smitten with her. And anybody who sees can tell. People in town actually try and warn him, but he decides to take Katherine at her word. And he's just like, listen, you were just protecting yourself from evil men. And those men before me were weak. They couldn't handle a strong woman. In 1993, the infidelity argument stops. And now she's mad because Price is not marrying her. Now, John Price had been married before. And he felt like his relationship went sour after they got married. And he had asked Katherine about her first marriage. And it seemed like it was the same thing. They'd been happy and then they got married and it went to hell. Mm-hmm. So he's like, why ruin a good thing with a wedding? In 1995, he tries to make her happy and he says, move in with me. He's a supervisor at the mine. The company gave him a really nice 3-bedroom house. She decides to keep her house and move in with him, which was great because he didn't exactly like the fact that she had animal skins and bones all over her house anyway.
There you go.
Things are great for a year. They live like a married couple. She starts asking about getting married again.
Oh, God.
These fights happen daily until about 1998. And then, as a retaliation for fighting with him one night, she takes a video camera that he bought for her for Christmas, and she videotapes things that John had taken from the trash at the mine, mainly old expired med kits, and she mails that tape to his boss, and he gets fired after 17 years.
What the hell?
Even after he explained that all of those supplies were expired, they wanted nothing to do with him or Katherine.
Wow.
He drove home, gathered all of Katherine's stuff, and chucked it out the front door. When she got home, she discovered all of the locks to the house were changed. They stood on the porch screaming at each other for about 2 hours until the neighbors threatened to call the police. She picked up her stuff and she went back to McQueen Street. John was free from Katherine, but he came up against some pushback. While he wasn't like officially blacklisted from the mining companies, other men knew about Katherine and they were kind of wary of dealing with any man who was dealing with her. Mm. She started hanging out at the bars again, looking for him, and their paths crossed. He tried to avoid her, but eventually one night he decides to just say hi. They go back to sleeping together. The news of the two of them back together goes through town in a second. And the next day, his friends show up at his new job to have an intervention. They're just like, listen, we don't want to watch you hurt yourself with this woman. Either she goes or we go. John's like, listen, it's just sex. I'm not going to move back in with her or anything. People in Aberdeen actually contacted David Kellett and were like, you need to come talk to this guy. So David Kellett meets him at a bar and shows John all of the scars that he got from the years he lived with Katherine. Mm-hmm. He even shares the warning that Barbara gave to him before their wedding. If you cross her, she'll kill you. He says, do you understand? This isn't a joke. She will kill you. John sat there kind of not taking it seriously.
Dude, you got all these people coming to you saying, stay away, stay away. You're going to die.
Before John even returned home that night, David had already left Aberdeen. Just being there was triggering for him. Mm-hmm. But he had done everything he could to save John Price. John started allowing Katherine to come by his house for date nights. She would cook for him. They'd eat, have sex. She'd go home. She started pushing for more in the relationship.
No.
It would escalate to Katherine screaming at him. He'd shove her out the front door of the house, lock the door. By 2000, the harassment is just incessant. They get in a fight and he remind her why they're not together. And she, of course, is like, well, listen, I'm not that person anymore. I won't do that again. And he's like, of course you won't do it again because you can't ruin my 17-year career again because I don't have it anymore. Mm-hmm. I am never letting you live here again. This fight happened weekly. She'd scream, calm down, they'd make up. One night they were together, and he told her he would never let her hold any power over his life ever again because her temper caused her to wreck things. And Katherine was offended. In fact, she told him, "You've never really seen me angry." She got up and started hitting him, stabbed him in the chest with a knife. He grabbed her, threw her out of the house onto the street. The blade was in one of his ribs, and it was in such a location that if it had been about a half an inch, if she'd been a half inch off of her mark, she would have stabbed him in the heart.
Oh, God.
In fact, and then as he was standing there, he was like, "Oh crap, the back door's open." He rushes to lock the back door. She's there, banging on all of the doors. He locks all the first floor windows, and eventually she leaves. That is February 28th, 2000.
I just can't.
February 29th, he stops at the Scone Magistrate Court on his way to work and gets a restraining order against Katherine.
Mm-hmm.
He tells his coworkers that day at work, "If I don't come to work, you need to come look for me because I think that means that Katherine will have killed me."
Oh.
His coworkers beg him not to go home. They're like, they at first they think that he's just like being a tough guy, but in fact, he says, "I'm worried that if I'm not there and the children are there, she's going to kill the kids. So I have to go back just to make sure they're okay." He goes to the house after the kids get home from school. He has them pack up, go stay the night with their friends and have a sleepover. He actually he spends most of the night, February 29th, at his friend's house, like across the street.
Should have stayed there.
Just kind of watching, making sure she wasn't there. At 11 p.m., he's confident she's not going to come. He goes back to his house.
Wrong time to go.
Katherine, on the other hand, spent her day differently. First thing she does is she goes to his house while he's not there.
That's how that goes.
She films the kids almost as if she's making like a will. And she's talking on the camera about like things she's going to give to the children once she's gone. Then she went to town, brought new lingerie, and waited. And after she saw him go into his house, she broke in, watched a little TV, took a shower, and then sexually assaulted him. She pretty much like mounted him while he was sleeping. He didn't even realize what was going on. Like he was asleep. And she'd actually hung her bag of knives above his bed.
Oh.
When they finished, he was loud, he was awake, and he was like, "Oh no." And he actually like pushes her off of him, which makes her angry.
Yeah, bad move.
She grabs one of the knives and stabs him between the ribs, collapsing one of his lungs.
Ugh.
He gets up and tries to run away, but his back is an even easier target, and she stabs him 2 more times from behind. He fell down, and she sits on his chest, stabbing him over and over again. Somehow, I don't know if it was a rush of adrenaline, he throws her off of him and manages to get outside onto the porch before just the adrenaline wears off and he kind of succumbs to his injuries. She drags him back inside and stabs him to death. Then she cleans herself off, drives into town with his car, goes to the ATM and empties his bank account, comes home, skins him, hangs the skin from a meat hook from the top of the door in the lounge, decapitates him, cooks part of his body with baked potatoes, pumpkin, beetroot, zucchini, cabbage, yellow squash, and gravy, puts 2 servings on the table, and then puts the names of his children, Rebecca and John, in like little place cards on the table.
Yeah.
A third meal is tossed in the backyard. She put his head in a pot with vegetables, and then she took the rest of his skinned body and arranged it in his favorite chair with his arms slung over an empty soda bottle and his legs crossed.
Oh my God.
She leaves a handwritten note with a piece of his skin on it, accusing him of raping one of her daughters and his own children. Then she takes all of her psych meds that were in the cabinet, climbs into the blood-soaked bed, and just waits to die.
Wow. So I gotta say one thing. While you were mentioning all that, the preparation for the food and stuff, my stomach did start growling.
Oh no! Right?
Not because it was appetizing to me, just because I'm hungry. Okay.
I could use some Chinese food. I just bought some.
It's fine. It was just a funny moment it happened.
Well, true to their word, when he didn't show up for work, his coworkers were like, "We need to go check on him."
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they showed up at 6 a.m.
Oh, they were ready.
Mm-hmm. The coworker was greeted with a bloody handprint on the front door and a blood smear on the porch leading back inside the house. They called the police. The police break in to find a comatose Katherine. The first responders are horrified. They didn't even understand what they were looking at. The entire downstairs, the stairwell leading down there, is just covered in blood. And finally, one of the other police officers goes, "That's a nose. That's pubic hair." And they realize that they are looking at John Price's flesh. Later on, they'll discover that she actually stabbed him 37 times in many vital organs. Ugh. Most of the men present that day quit working as cops after viewing this scene. There were more than one report of suicide. And the few who didn't quit stayed away from meat for a little bit.
I would.
In fact, the police arrived quick enough to discover that the pot with his head in it was still warm, which means that they got there shortly after she finished. Oh, no. Which also means she didn't have time to die.
Oh, no.
They also deduced that the meal in the backyard was from her trying the food and being disgusted by it. And the interesting thing was that the skinning had been done so expertly that after the autopsy, the coroner was able to kind of put him back together.
Oh no, I don't know I don't like that.
It's an awful image, but like at least he could sort of have an open casket.
Yeah, sort of, but not really. Anyway, go ahead.
Listen, a skilled mortician could probably make it work.
Okay, yeah.
Gotta cover the neck wound though. 2 days later, Katherine wakes up from her coma and the police are like, "We're ready to interview you." But they kind of forgot about her mental health issues. Katherine's like, "I don't remember anything from the past couple days." And if this was the first time that Katherine had hurt a man, they might have been willing to accept that. Mm-hmm. But while the police are kind of like, well, we got to wait for her to be in a better headspace, hundreds of people show up at the police station and they're just like, "We want to give a statement about Katherine Knight."
Oh.
Everyone in Aberdeen is terrified of what will happen if she is ever let out. Mm-hmm. So the first time she shows up to court, she tries to plead guilty for manslaughter, saying that she remembers nothing, but obviously she did it because there's evidence. The judge is like, "This is the worst crime I've ever seen in my entire life. Absolutely, there is no such thing. You're not even allowed to plead anything right now, honestly. Unless you are pleading to first-degree murder, I don't want to hear you."
I plead guilty to everything.
She was arraigned on March 2nd, 2001, where she entered a plea of not guilty. Her trial was originally planned for July 23rd, but it got pushed back to October 15th, 2001, because her lawyer actually got sick. During that time, they decided to have her psychologically evaluated. Not to prove that she was insane or anything, but they just wanted to prove that she was competent enough to enter a plea. And that was when she was formally given a borderline personality diagnosis. But in fact, some of her old psychiatrists came forward and were like, no, we disagree. Don't do this. I'll explain why they said that in a little bit.
Okay.
Trying to find a jury for this trial was pretty rough. Almost all of Aberdeen knew about the legend of Katherine Knight. And Justice Barry O'Keefe gave the jurors the opportunity to back out because the pictures of the crime scene were particularly gruesome. And about 5 people did remove themselves. But of the pool of about 60 potential jurors, they did find enough people for the trial. So, the borderline personality situation here is that Katherine pretty much said she frequently dissociated and had been, this is what she did on the night the crime happened. Mm-hmm. Her lawyer used this diagnosis to say that she was not culpable for her actions. Now, I have to say this because a lot of people don't, I wouldn't say it's a rare diagnosis, but it's not as common as some of the other ones we've heard. Usually when we talk about killers, we hear schizophrenic.
Right.
It's a very hard mental illness to have. It's hard to diagnose. But I feel like I should just explain it because a lot of people who have mental illnesses really find the way that it is portrayed in court to be very disrespectful. Yes, Katherine did have some of the symptoms, but dissociation is not you forgetting who and where you are and you just black out for a month.
Right, right.
Dissociation is your mind separating itself from the information and stimulus coming in. It can affect your sense of identity, your sense of self. It affects your sense of time. People dissociating report feeling like they are almost outside of themselves, watching them experience the world. They don't forget what's happening to them. It's not a blackout. You're just kind of watching and not feeling what's happening to you. My friends who have had this have told, who have BPD,
experienced it,
have told me that they feel just numb, and like they're watching themselves in a film.
Yeah,
it's like really hard to explain.
It's like you're a third person, or not first person,
right? But because this is such a hard thing to explain to people who don't understand it, the lawyer was able to mischaracterize this aspect of her supposed mental illness, and it was definitely on purpose. In fact, one of my best friends for the last decade has BPD, and you know who this person is, Brian, but I won't say their name on air because this diagnosis gets a really bad rap.
Okay.
People treat you poorly for having it. I have come across dozens upon dozens of articles that just are like, this is why you shouldn't date someone with BPD. It's a very difficult illness to manage, and I've known 3 different people in my life who are managing it and are nothing like this.
Yeah, I know a few as well.
Katherine and her lawyer put on a whole show. So at the beginning of the trial, they, read off all of your crimes. Mm-hmm. Katherine begins begging to leave the courtroom. She cries and she begins wailing. She has an entire fit when they bring out the photos of the crime scene, and they actually have to sedate her. Thankfully, the jury didn't care at all if she remembered committing the crime, because her bloody fingerprints were all over John's house, and she was the only person in town, one of the few people in town who could fillet a man with that much skill, and the only one with the motive to do it. The judge sentenced her to life in prison and then added to her file, never to be released.
Oh, damn.
She was the first woman in Australia to receive this punishment. And I remember thinking at the time, all because she killed one man? Sure, it was gruesome, but I've read worse. Mm-hmm. But now, after researching this, Katherine Knight was a menace to everyone in Aberdeen from 15 years old to 46. Like, I get why nobody in this area wanted her there at all.
Yeah.
So Katherine has been in the Mullewa High Security Prison ever since. She is escorted by 4 armed guards because even medicated, they see her as still dangerous. She wakes up at 7 a.m. She eats breakfast in the same room as the other prisoners, but nowhere near them. They walk her to her job in the prison. They handcuff her to her station, which is out of reach of all of the other inmates, where she assembles small, intricate earpieces. She is very good at her job, actually. So good that it's the job that pays the most in the prison. Mm-hmm. And she got it because she's the best at doing it.
Of course.
And interestingly enough, the prisoners call her Nana, and she often handles disputes between the women in prison before guards are called. Sometimes when prisoners get upset with the guards, she tells them to knock it off, and they do. Her word is pretty much the law under the law.
Oh my God.
Because people are still scared of her. Even now, like 2021, she is a 65-year-old woman. When she is at cell time, she crafts. She's turned her love of meticulous knife work into drawings, paintings, pottery, knitting, intricate pieces. Her artwork is so good that the prison put it up in the visitor and guard section. Some pieces have been sold to help fund programs in the prison, but she doesn't sign them. Mm. She doesn't actually like the idea of people buying it because she's a killer.
There are people who would.
Exactly. There are people in the States who are like, absolutely, I will sign anything you want for some money.
Yeah, basically.
In the last 20 years, Katherine has never been given a cellmate. The prison thinks that she's still a risk. And so the only way to keep everyone else safe around her is to have these guards on her whenever she's around anyone.
That's
She's not allowed to be alone except in her cell.
It's pretty smart.
Honestly, I agree. Like, this is one of those situations where I am pretty solid in what the courts did. Normally, we're like mad at the justice system, but I'm like,
no, you guys are good.
New South Wales, high five. Absolutely.
Oh my God.
On ya. Now, a lot of people who listen to this podcast often email me asking for more modern stories. The problem with modern stories is that there are people who are still alive, like her 4 children, Melissa and Natasha Kellett, Sarah Saunders, and Eric Chillingworth. These are real people who are in their 30s and 40s. And they are just trying to live their lives and not deal with this. None of her kids have anything to do with her. John Price did have 3 children total, Rebecca, Rosemary, and John. Rebecca and John, there's no mention of them in any publications. The one thing I did find was that John's daughter, Rosemary, who was not there when the crimes happened, is not fond of sensationalism about her father's death. And I found an article where she spoke about how distasteful it was that someone was trying to make a movie about him.
Yeah, I saw that. I was looking up and I was like,
And they were going to name it after his nickname for her. He called her the Speckled Hen.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, that's a term of endearment.
Yeah.
I don't want that movie.
No.
Katherine did appeal her life sentence in June of 2006. She said that it was too severe to never give her a chance to rehabilitate. Justices Peter McClellan, Michael Adams, and Megan Latham discussed the appeal in September of 2006, and they rejected it, primarily because Katherine has never shown any remorse for this murder, and Justice McClellan wrote in his formal response, this was an appalling crime, almost beyond contemplation in civilized society. I would say he's right, and there's really no way we could ever know if Katherine has been rehabilitated. And I wouldn't risk trying to rehabilitate her and put her around other people.
No, because even as a grandma,
she could still slice and dice somebody.
Oh my God, hell yeah.
One of the things I was struck by this week's subject is how misogyny protected Katherine Knight. None of the men she ever dated ever filed a police report against her. And a lot of that was from the shame of reporting that they were abuse victims. I know some of these relationships were from decades ago, but this is still an issue today.
Absolutely.
Men are being abused by women like Katherine Knight, and we just don't talk about it, and they get laughed at when they report it or mocked by both men and women alike. And I'm just left wondering if globally the culture around domestic violence was different and less misogynistic, then maybe she would have been put in prison long before she murdered John Price.
Right, yeah.
This is one of those few times in the podcast where I'm not upset with the justice system. I'm more upset with society.
It is a thing. This just came up like a day or two ago about men and being, in relationships where they're being abused. I'm like, look, if you need someone to talk to, I will not judge you at all. Like,
yeah, it's rough.
It's a thing. Men do get abused, and it's rough. It's terrible.
And the thing is, globally, around the world in the 50s, 60s, 70s, it was the same way. Like, you didn't want to show that you weren't masculine. And sure, Katherine Knight was 6 feet, and she was several of the books I read described her as having a sculpted physique. It's because she was constantly lifting, having things. She was built, but not like bodybuilder built.
Yeah, she was just like a toned type.
Right, she was toned.
Yeah.
And attractive, but like regardless of how tall she was. See, it's one of those weird things because in the beginning we were like, "Yay, rah rah!" She's beating up her brothers who were touching her.
Yeah,
and then I'm like, now she's just beating up everybody.
Yeah, I
forever.
I love how the stories always like devolve into this like, yay, I'm cheering for this person because they had a rough time, but now they're like overcoming it, and then eventually it becomes like them being the assaulter or like the it's just.
Well, that's the humanity and part of why I like doing this podcast, because all of these people are human, which means they're is it's multifaceted. There is good and bad in everybody. Unfortunately, in this case, the bad was very bad. It's usually very bad
Yeah.
when we talk about these things. But one thing that we learn is that they experience some of the very human things that a lot of us have. Some of these people come from broken homes. That's pops up all the time in our stories. So that's important to me because I don't know why this is just one of those things that's really important to me, which is just even the worst of us are still people. And somehow me recognizing that allows me to kind of know my place. We all have a capacity for evil. And the thing that makes us different from everybody else is the fact that we choose not to do it.
Exactly. It's how we handle it, how we deal with it.
I don't believe in looking at people and treating them like they're boogeymen. This is a monster. I'm like, this is a person who did a monstrous thing.
Mm-hmm.
But make no mistakes. I talk about people on the TikTok all the time who kill people out of love for other people. So never say never, I guess.
Yeah.
But what do you have for me today, Brian?
Well, that was a great story. I hated it.
Oh, dude.
Goodness gracious. So, this week, I'm going to let you know that I get lost easily inside of buildings I'm unfamiliar with.
Oh.
Like, so for my job, I go to hospitals and stuff like that.
Right,
like,
you have to walk through all the winding hospital hallways.
Uh-huh. The worst one's Hershey, that's where it is. But, like, when I first would go to a hospital, I'd get lost a couple times, but they have signs on the walls. I'm like, okay, well, at least I don't get that lost. I know which way I should be heading. But can you just imagine if someone would just drop me off inside of, like, the Winchester Mystery House?
I love the Winchester Mystery House.
And, like, at night, and I have no idea where the hell I'm going, and all those winding and, like, trap doors and stuff.
Listen, if we can go there, I would absolutely go there with you.
Like, it would take me like forever to find my way out of that damn house. But I've been saving the story. It's been in my back pocket for, I don't know, since we started the freaking podcast, I think. But
this is one of my favorites.
I decided to talk about it since it's getting closer and closer to freaking October. Can you believe that? Oh my god! Like,
I'm planning.
It's what's today? 25th. It's almost October.
This Friday.
Oh my god! I gotta get a damn costume.
I know.
So I figured, why not? Break it out.
I'm ready.
All right. So now, before we get into this spooky home house, it's only right that we delve into the mind of its designer, creator, constructor, whatever.
She didn't do anything.
Not really. She just got the plans, and
she just hired people to do it.
So we're gonna talk about.
I feel bad for her.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about Sarah Winchester herself. She was born Sarah Lockwood Pardee, the daughter of Leonard Pardee and Sarah Burns. She grew up pretty well off. I mean, she spoke like 4 languages. Mm-hmm. So she spoke 4 languages. She went to like good schools. Mm-hmm. She was very beautiful and had a very sparkling personality. So
I can't remember a picture of her.
So I'm gonna say, she pretty she grew up pretty nicely. By the way, her family is from Connecticut. Yeah, that's basically where like this all started. So Connecticut.
I know she didn't move west until way later in her life. Yeah.
It's a pretty state to visit in the fall. This time of year. You want to go to New England?
New England is beautiful in the fall.
Yeah,
though, for
absolutely.
Real.
So I couldn't find where they met, but on September 30th, 1862, Sarah married William Wirt Winchester.
I imagine if she was rich and he was rich,
Well, there, yeah,
It was arranged. That was the time, wasn't it?
yeah. I just wrote a note. There's triple W's. She took no L's.
Oh my gosh.
He was the son of Oliver Winchester, the owner of the Winchester Repeating Arms Company, the creators of the
Winchester rifle.
Winchester rifle. It's said to be the gun that won the West.
Mm-hmm.
So they had one child. Her name was Annie Pardee. She unfortunately died about a month after she was born. A lot of my stories have tuberculosis in them.
Yeah,
I'm not sure
common.
why. It's very common. So
tuberculosis was just that Rona, you know?
Yeah, it really was. It was that Rona. Yes, it was.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's a poor joke.
Oh my God. So of course,
it was the Rona of the time.
Yeah, of course it was, common these times. So William wasn't spared from the disease and succumbed to it in 1881. Not a consolation for having lost her husband, but she did inherit $20.5 million. That's about $536.3 million in today's cash.
It was the entire fortune.
Yeah, she got she got half. Well, yeah, she got
half of the fortune.
No, she got the whatever.
Oh, I was gonna say, holy Jesus!
Also, she did.
That's a lot of money. No, that means that the Winchester
what she got half
family
of
was worth $1 billion.
What she got half of was the ownership of the Winchester Repeating Arms Company.
Oh, okay.
So, which came with, excuse me, there goes my voice. Which came with a nice income of $1,000 a day. That is $26,852.29 in today's money.
Oh, I love it. She would have been making more than I make in a year in a day.
I'm fucking sick. I'm sick. That when I read that, I was like, oh my God. Being
a teacher is a thankless and not paying well job, y'all.
Oh my God. They make goodness gracious. Anyway, so this
are and always were a big business.
Yeah. So this made her one of the wealthiest women in the world. One of the wealthiest women in the world.
What year would this have been?
18. I'm guessing 1881. That's when he died. So
okay.
After,
because I'm trying to remember when Madam C.J. Walker was. She was born in 1867 and died in 1919. She was also one of the most. She was like the first Black woman millionaire. So, and she's considered to be one of the most rich women of the time.
Yeah.
And Sarah Winchester is more wealthy than Madam C.J. Walker by a lot.
Oh my God. It's freaking crazy.
So, I imagine there weren't too many women who had that,
Yeah, but not the country. She was the richest in the freaking world.
500 times more wealthy.
It's crazy.
And they lived around the same time.
It's crazy. Oh my God. I was still sick about it, so I wrote some other stuff.
That just.
I was like, the whole round, not flat world.
That's just doing me in, fam. That's so much money.
Oh my God.
It's almost unfathomable. It's the way that people talk about Jeff Bezos. And they're like, he makes $300,000 a day?
I don't fucking
Something
know.
Crazy. And I'm just like, I don't know what that means. Like, you're talking about $1 billion, but I really don't understand $1 billion practically. So for me, $1 billion and 500 million, same thing.
Yeah, basically.
I don't understand.
Exactly. Yeah.
It might as well be monopoly money for me.
Yeah, because I have no idea what's going on. So, of course, deeply saddened by the passing of her child and husband. They did pass 15 years apart.
Still.
But yeah, still that. Exactly. She does what any grieving person of that time would do.
Uh-oh.
She goes to see a medium. They were all the rage.
Would be so disappointed.
They were all the rage back then. Side note. I'm pretty sure that we had the fortune telling law in PA.
Oh,
Due to freaking Houdini. You remember when I was telling remember when I was telling the story about Houdini and how he kind of got fortune telling outlawed?
Right, yeah. I mean, he was pretty aggressive about it too.
Yeah.
Pretty much lobbying the government.
And I just remember
they were taking advantage of a very vulnerable public.
This is true. Very true. And I'm not mad at him for it. Well, I'll never be mad at Houdini, but
like
still.
I said, I know a little bit about this story. And I feel like Sarah Winchester was taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm. So this medium, they tell her that the Winchester family is cursed because the guns that they made took so many lives. So the spirits that were killed by the guns were seeking vengeance. And in order to kind of save herself from the curse, Sarah had to build a home for not only herself, but for the spirits as well.
You got all this money, house us.
Yeah, basically. You're making money off of our deaths. Like, yeah. So the medium tells her that the home was to be situated in the west where the sun sets. So with her belongings and that inheritance that she just, all that money's.
Her ill-gotten gains. She didn't want it, though, to be honest.
No,
she would have rather had her husband.
Yeah, absolutely. She moves from New Haven, Connecticut to San Jose, California, where she purchased an unfurnished 8-room farmhouse. The house used to only have 8 rooms. Only 8 rooms. I'll tell you later how many rooms it has.
Okay. I was thinking.
So that would be enough for anybody, right? Just 8 rooms, maybe in their spirits. The spirits can have a room by themselves, and
Right. Here you go, y'all.
There you go. But,
it's only me.
Yeah, but I guess if your housing goes, you gotta make some renovations. So she hired carpenters, builders, and laborers, and they worked basically day and night on this house.
Now, like I said, I remember that. I've seen multiple things about this.
Mm-hmm.
How do you sleep
in a house you're
that's constantly under construction?
It pretty easily. My grand uncle, he actually does like house flipping and stuff like that.
Well, it's just because, like, when there's been construction or them working on something out in front of my building, I find it very bothersome.
I don't know. I can sleep like the dead, so.
I definitely noticed that they are making sounds at like 6 a.m.
So they worked on it until it was a 7-story mansion. Cool, right?
I didn't know it was 7 stories.
It was 7 stories.
Holy jeez. Wait, was?
It was 7 stories.
When was it 7 stories?
Back when they first built it.
Interesting, because it's not that big now.
No, there's a reason why.
Okay.
Well, since Sarah didn't use any type of architect, the house.
Oh no!
The house was built pretty like haphazardly.
Wait! I've seen pictures of this place, and it looks very beautifully done. She just picked some random folks from the 1900s Home Depot.
Yeah, basically.
And here you go.
Well, actually, she had a plan for like the house, and that plan came from her spirit friends.
Oh, yes, okay. Because a ghost is a good architect.
Yes. But based on how the rooms were built, I'm a little iffy on I'm a little iffy on if she got all of it from the ghosts.
Right.
So we'll get into that
later.
I said,
too. It looks beautiful.
Oh, it is. It's a wonderful looking house.
Like, I love a good Victorian, so that's on top of the whole ghost thing. I would want to look at it just because it's pretty.
Yeah, I know, right? I'll go into the specs of the house a little later.
Or is it a Victorian? Am I right?
I think it was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when it was all said and done, the mansion had 161 rooms in it. Sarah was so determined to finish the mansion that she lived almost in solitude. So no one lived with her. Only people that were around her were the construction workers or the workers that she hired.
Well, now one thing that I did hear about her is that she stayed in mourning her whole life, didn't she?
Yeah. Yeah, because she always wore black.
Like the black veil.
She always wore black. Yep.
So, that was, I guess, in honor of her husband?
Yeah. Terrible.
Eesh.
Maybe it was for her husband, or maybe for the spirits that,
Oh, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Out of respect for them.
Yeah. I mean, I wear black all the time anyway, so fuck it. I'm always in mourning as well. I sit
here across from you also wearing mostly black.
We're both in mourning. For what? Who cares? We're mourning something. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Gosh, that was such a dark thought. Okay, Gen Z, Brian.
Oh my God.
Not cracking jokes on y'all. I find Gen Z humor to be wonderful.
It's pretty nice.
Whenever one of my coworkers is just talking about I hope I get hit by a bus so I don't have to come into work tomorrow. I love it. I think it's hilarious.
I mean, we're millennials, so we get that.
Yup.
We get that shit.
It's just super funny.
It's just bad that y'all, a younger generation, is feeling like that.
Yeah, I'm why are y'all so depressed? I'm sorry.
It was we kind of did this to you, but
didn't we want hope for the future?
No, fuck that shit. Oh my God. Oh, goodness. September 5th, 1922. Sarah passes away in her sleep due to a heart failure.
Oh, dang.
Yep. She was 83.
Oh, okay. Not that young.
No. So, and when she died, all construction on the house pretty much stopped.
Right.
So, now let's get into the house, because there are some things I skipped over. So we're going backwards and going into the house and all the construction.
Well, the only things I know for sure is that there's a seance room and it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's not as many rooms there now as you said.
No.
Because they recently found the 101st room 2 summers ago.
Yeah.
And they didn't know where, they legitimately were oh, look, a new room. And I think that's so weird because it's been a monument for decades.
Yeah. Yeah.
Historical site, that's what I mean, not a monument.
So it did have 161 rooms.
And it was 7 stories.
Yeah.
Are there pictures from this time?
Not sure. I think there are. I'm pretty sure you have to dig for them. But I know you're wondering just what's all behind those doors and those 161 rooms. Well, this 24,000 square foot mansion includes 40 bathrooms, 2 ballrooms, and 9 kitchens, and a seance room.
Jesus.
The seance room was called the Witch's Cap, which is where, Sarah would go to get her plans.
It's
from
sprawling. It looks like a fancy mansion that a rich person in today's time would own.
Yeah.
Definitely. This is so how many square feet again?
24,000.
Again, as we sit in my 400 square foot apartment, I don't understand what that means in real words, in real terms. I don't think I've ever been in a house that big.
Wait. I think I've been in something close to that, but that's about it.
It sounds like the equivalent of a stadium.
I have to see how fucking big a stadium is, but on the property, she has orchards too.
Mm-hmm.
Of
oh
yeah, so a lot of people go there. They get married too. I went on the website. They have wedding stuff there too, and it's what?
I do that.
That's awesome.
It's better than a plantation.
This is true. Oh, so true. Oh my God. So there are also 47 fireplaces, over 10,000 panes of glass, 2,000 doors, 52 skylights, 2 basements, and 3 elevators in this house. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There it goes.
Look at how tall the little tower is.
There it goes. That's the old one.
I just wanted to see a picture of what it looked like in the past.
Oh, and as you can tell, she spared no calls. No calls were spared. Some of the stained glass windows were made by Tiffany.
Oh,
the Tiffany
those
company.
are expensive.
Yes.
Talking about $1 million window panes.
Yes. She was not kidding when she
Listen, they said the ghost told me build a house, but they didn't say it had to be a crappy house.
Right.
I can still be bougie.
I got to live in here too. Might as well look nice.
It's just so sad to think of her living in that big place all alone.
I know. Really terrible. I'm pretty sure she had servants.
Probably servants, but still she didn't have any boyfriend
no
or
family,
anything,
nothing.
Or
yeah.
no family. She just lived in a big old Victorian dress with a black thing over her eyes all the time.
It's terrible.
It's so sad.
It's terrible. So inside this beast of a mansion, there are also stairways that lead to nowhere.
Yep. Right into the roof.
Rooms you can open the doors to, but it just leads you to a brick wall.
I like the one that's just a straight up drop.
Yeah. There are trap doors and spy holes, of course, secret passageways, and big rooms with smaller rooms inside of them.
Okay, so what if
Oh my god.
you could have a slumber party there?
Yes.
I don't think they let people sleep there because when Shane Madej and Ryan Bergara went, they only got to like be there at night. They didn't sleep there.
Oh,
so I don't know if they let you sleep there, but I just think that would be super fun.
That would be awesome.
I think because of how expensive all the like chandeliers and stuff are, they wouldn't trust people to stay there.
I mean, that makes sense.
Normally, like when they let you stay at a place, it's garbage.
It's very true.
Like all the old,
Yes.
sanitariums are trashed. Sure, you can stay here.
They're overcome with freaking wilderness. Why not? You can stay here all night if you want to.
Fancy houses with Tiffany chandeliers and windows. You may not stay here. You can do your ghost hunt and get the hell out. I'm sorry. That characterization is me, not the Winchester Mystery House. I'm sure they're very nice people.
So, like I said, the spirits they gave Sarah plans.
Right, and she got those from her little seances.
Yeah. But she would also add in these little additions.
Oh.
Like
fancy.
So that she could confuse the spirits that were stalking her, and they were out for vengeance. So that's why
it moved around. Like she would build a room and then destroy it.
Mm-hmm. There's just a lot of construction going on.
Like, oh, ghost, you thought this was a bathroom. Psych.
Brick wall in your face. Oh.
Even though ghosts can go through things, but whatever.
Yeah, who cares? She really loved the number 13.
Right.
Like, a lot of the things you see in the house, there's a lot of 13 things going on.
Right. I've heard that during the tour they like encourage you to count the stuff.
Yeah, like the stairs. There are a lot of stairways or staircases. They have 13 stairs.
The ones that I've seen pictures of are like the long stairs, which I find to be annoying. Like instead of it being a normal step distance, it's like a foot across or like 2 feet long. And what is the point?
So you can have more people walking up the stairs.
What is the point of a stairwell that's that long?
It just has to be.
It's like horizontal stairway.
Oh goodness.
I heard it's also like really tight corridors too.
Yeah. If you're counting, there are also 13 bathrooms.
Oh, see?
Yeah.
Now, why did she was her liking of 13 because she liked it?
I think it's the same way why I like 13, because it's just the
creepy number.
I'd say that, and it's just it's a lucky number too. Sometimes
okay.
It's all to be lucky.
Well, yeah, depending on what culture you're in.
Absolutely.
Isn't like 4 an unlucky number in like China?
Somewhere. I actually meant to make a TikTok about that. I forgot all about that. God damn it. Anyway. So in either 1906 or 1904, I got different sources. So there was an earthquake in California.
Oh, yeah. That was a big earthquake.
Yeah, which damaged the house, causing the top 3 floors to collapse. And at the end of it, they weren't rebuilt. So that left the mansion with only 4 stories instead of 7 stories.
That's the San Francisco one that set San Francisco on fire.
Yeah, that's that big.
I guess it must add up some pretty serious reverberations if it.
Was that one?
Well, that's the one that happened in 1906.
Okay, then yes. Let's just say yes.
Because I was like, there was a big one in the early 1900s that like racked San Francisco. Like everything fell down.
That's that one then.
Okay, wow. And what city is this one in?
I'm gonna say San Jose,
okay.
California.
Okay, so San Francisco to San Jose. How far away is that? Come on, Google, tell me the mileage. That's 50 miles away.
Oh yeah, so yeah, it definitely.
That's yeah. I mean, it was like I said, it's one of the worst California earthquakes, but to be able to knock down buildings 55 miles away, that's intense.
I mean, remember that we had an earthquake like years and years ago that was in California, but we felt it all the way in fucking Philadelphia.
Wait, was that really that?
No, it wasn't that one. But when was it? I was in school, right? I was in school then, like culinary arts school, and 2010, 2011, I think it was. There was an earthquake in California. You felt it all the way in Philadelphia. And because everything was like shaking, we were like, what the hell was that? And then they ended class early and it was like, oh, it was an earthquake. Apparently, it was on one of those fault lines that, you could feel it. But I was just really...
I Googled California earthquake felt on East Coast.
Yeah.
And it,
Maybe I got the wrong information.
Maybe no, there was an earthquake that happened on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Because it broke the giant obelisk in Washington. I think it's called the Washington Monument.
Oh, okay.
I know it's an obelisk.
Obelisk.
I know certain words. Here I am using 15th grade words, but I can't remember the name of the monument. 15th grade,
yes.
Or as I think my $25 words, but I'm forgetting basic stuff. But yeah, it's the Washington Monument. It cracked. It's been cracked.
It was
the mid-aughts. Like the 2012, 2013, around that time. I remember because I was on the phone with somebody and I was sitting in my bed and the TV started shaking. And I literally said to him on the phone, is this an earthquake? And then apparently everyone started calling each other and the cell phone towers got overloaded and I couldn't talk to anybody for like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And that was when I lived in Philadelphia. So that's why I was like, I remember that one. Is that the same one?
I know this happened in like 2010, 2011. So that's because that's when I was in culinary arts school. So that's the only reason why I know.
Oh, you were there too?
Yeah.
Were we in Philadelphia at the same time?
Probably.
That's so fun. We didn't know each other.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, back to the story.
I'm so sorry, y'all. We are off the rails tonight.
Oh goodness!
What happens when we start the podcast late?
This is true. Late in the day, we're all wound up. So the mansion was showed shortly after Sarah's death, like a couple months after she died. The mansion was sold to John and Maine Brown. Like in 5 months after her death, John opened the house to the public for tours.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me that something bad happened to him.
No.
I was ready for it.
Even our boy, Harry Houdini, was there to take it, check it out because he was on his spiritualism tour.
He was there to prove that there were no ghosts.
Basically.
And that the mediums were bullshit.
Basically. He was there to expose spiritualism for all that it was. Anyway, he didn't know what to make of the house. And like he walked away with like more questions than answer because it was just like a weird ass house to him. And he gave it the name, the Winchester Mystery House.
Really?
Yeah.
What did they call?
He gave it that moniker.
Wow. I never knew that.
So and they went with that.
Harry Houdini.
That's my boy. That is my boy. God damn it.
That was just a personal joke between us and Hams. That's pretty much it.
So over the years, since the mansion became an attraction, visitors and staff have reported strange encounters.
Yes.
Like footsteps when no one's in the room, strange voices, doors banging, strange lights, doorknobs turning by themselves, just, plain creepy stuff.
The worst part about like a door banging, like here, small apartment, the door closes. I'm like, yep, there you go. That's a ghost. You're in that place. What door is banging? What direction do I even go towards?
Yep.
You just let it go. You gotta just let it be.
Yeah, imagine the echo.
You just gotta let it go. I imagine being the security guard there would be rough.
Yeah.
But you have to have one.
Yeah, true. This is also a great place for mediums or, psychics to come. Goodness gracious.
Of course. Gotcha.
Yeah, psychics to come and, put their 2 cents in.
Test it out.
Yeah.
I'm sure they all experience Sarah Winchester.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Everyone talks to Sarah.
You
know what my hope is? I hope she passed. Like, I hope she passed on to whatever
I got you.
afterlife that there is, and she really isn't there at her house,
just
walking around sad.
Yeah.
100 years later.
Goodness. But they have said that there are spirits there at the house, and one in particular is Sarah Winchester.
I hope not.
The Hall of Fires is a good spot to visit if you want to experience something paranormal.
Okay.
Named for all the fireplaces in it.
Right. Okay, I have heard of that before.
So a man was in the room helping with renovations or to restore it when he feels a tap on his shoulder. Turns around, no one's there. He's like, huh, weird. Turns back around to go back to work, and he feels this like hand on his back, just pushing him like very hard into his back. And then he's just like, you know what? I think they need help in that other room, so I'm just gonna go down the hall.
I mean, he did exactly what the ghost wanted. The ghost was like, get out.
There's an old worker there. Mm-hmm. His name is Clyde, and he's a ghost.
Oh.
And he hangs out in the basement.
Right. That is where Ryan and Shane both did their little solo ghost thing.
Ooh.
In the basement.
So, this mansion is open for tours this year.
Oh, yay. I'm saying yay like I could go to San Jose.
They have... It deviates a lot from when it was. Like, just, giving tours about it. It like, nowadays, they have axe throwing at the stables.
Oh, dope. Listen, axe throwing was awesome.
There's a freaking Harry Houdini escape room theme thing going on there.
So I mean, they got to make their money.
Yeah, like it's become a lot more than a spooky, insanely built house. It's just like it's actually like an attraction now for people to go to, and if they want to.
I just want to see the architecture.
Yeah, I just want to. Also, she had a thing for spider webs.
Oh,
and if you go there and look, a lot of the windows. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of spiderweb designs.
Oh, cool.
As well. But
you have a kindred spirit.
I know, right? Spiders, number 13. Harry Houdini came to my house. Not really, I wish, but
you can go there and pretend to be Sarah Winchester.
There you go. Oh, Harry, what are you talking about? Ghosts? No ghosts. Anyway, that's what I got today.
Well, that was I like that one.
Oh goodness!
I love I would love to visit. It's still on my list of places to go.
Yeah, absolutely. That and even going to California to visit Mr. Or is it California? Or is it in Las Vegas?
Which one?
The mansion, not the mansion, the museum by.
Oh, you mean Zach Bagans Museum?
Yeah, that museum.
It's in Vegas.
Okay, yeah, I go to Vegas one day. You go to visit, I guess. Just to see, I want to see the dolls there, and then look at his stupid stuff, and not his face. He has
the mirrors and stuff.
He has the Dybbuk box there too.
I thought he only got to.
Wait, I think it's there. I'm pretty sure it's there.
I know that he got to open the Dybbuk box, which you're not supposed to do.
Why would you do?
But I thought the man who owned it keeps it secure, like he buries it when he has not taken it out.
I'm not sure. I think I did hear that it was either that or something that he had there.
It might have been like an exhibit for a short amount of time.
Yeah. But I have to look into that. Anyway, thank you guys for listening this week. If you want to follow us on socials, you got Brittany Podcast on TikTok. And I am Creeps with Brian. I've been trying to post more stuff on there, so
yeah,
check it out. I got more shit. I got what is it? What am I doing? Cryptids or urban legends in your state. So
yeah, that's cool. And most of our socials you can find the links to on our website, whenkillersgotcaught.com.
Yes.
And if you listened this whole 2 hours, thank you so much.
We do appreciate it.